First things first, Cody. How are you? How are you?
Doing great, thank you. And yourself?
I'm all right, thank
Good,
you.
good.
Well,
Still adjusting from the travel, but I'm good.
Okay. Well, before we get into the music, I'd like to jump back a little bit to, well, do you have a first musical memory? Something that stuck
My
with you?
first musical memory. I grew up in a very musical household, so my first musical memory would have to be just hearing a house full of music,
Okay.
you know, and responding to that by playing drums. I would get sticks and play on the bed and pillows and things
Okay.
like that, you know.
And what kind of music was played at your house?
I grew up with all kind of music. Actually, soul was always the consistent thing, but you know, I heard everything from. My grandmother was a big fan of Ella Fitzgerald and pop music at the time. I had uncles that had been in the military, so they brought different things back. Another early memory was seeing a poster of Kiss
Okay.
on one of my uncle's walls, you know. But everything, you know, from pop music at the time, like, you know, Motown, Beatles, and Parliament, Funkadelic, just everything.
Was it instilled into you then early on to desire to be a singer or to do something with music?
I would say so, because, you know, like a lot of kids, I was, you know, touched by the Jacksons,
Right.
Jackson 5, you know. And like all the other children, Michael Jackson just cut through it all and touched my heart. So early on, I tried to find that within myself, you know.
When did you find your voice? Was it at an early age or?
When you say find my voice, you mean like learning that I could sing?
That you had a
Right,
good
right.
voice and?
I would say early on, maybe between 9 and 11,
Okay.
I began to hear it and feel it, you know, and began to like what I heard, you know, comparing it to what I heard on records. Like, oh, it made me feel the same way. Yeah.
And well, obviously you mentioned soul. So were there artists in particular that kind of struck you that made you want to pursue music?
Well, quite naturally, once again, you know, the Jackson's experience, you know, the early Motown body of work, you know, completely, you know, sucked me in, you know, but Michael Jackson was the standout.
Okay.
You know, and then later on, Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye and Sam Cooke and all those guys. But, you know, I came in as a disciple of Michael Jackson, if you will.
Well, this might sound as a silly question then, but what about Michael Jackson was it that struck you?
I think just the purity of his soul and his voice, you know, it rang so crystal clear, you know, that it just pulled you in. And as it should, you know, it goes deep to your soul, you know.
So what at this point in your life, at a very early age, what did music mean to you? Was it what did you get out of it? Get out of singing, get out.
Quite a bit, but to be succinct and right, really simple about it, joy.
Okay.
Joy and peace and being uplifted, you know.
Because one thing, well, I'm going to jump forward to well, the music you're working on now. And I read somewhere that one thing that you want to do is kind of bring a bit of positivity into the world with your music. So is that enjoyment, is that now the same as it was then?
Absolutely, I still get joy from the creative process or just the song in general, you know. I couldn't do it if the joy wasn't there. You know, for me, joy is the foundation of it, and not just a bit of positivity. You know, I want the whole experience to be positive.
So in that sense, is the creative process, is that an easy one for you?
For me, it is, but I think it just, once again, it just depends on the lifestyle of the communicator.
Right.
You know, I really want a peaceful life. I want a joyful life. You know, I want a life rooted in love.
Mm-hmm.
And so the music or the work, whatever I'm doing, just reflects that.
If you go then back to the Headphone Masterpieces, was that the same then? Because well, you say a joyful, peaceful life.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that was a different time.
Mm-hmm.
You were a different person at that point.
Sure.
So how do you look back at that part of your life, at that album?
Well, even then, as chaotic as it was, you know, or as intense as it was, you know, it still gave me joy and the peace of mind that I like to have, you know, because I was able to express honestly what I was feeling.
Right.
You know, and then I think the joy comes from that.
Did it come easy to you to be as raw and as honest as you were on that album?
It did, because, you know, I was in my bedroom, you know, a place of solace, and you know, not distracted, you know.
Sure.
As I've always said, you know, for me it was like a diary, when you're in your room writing a diary, or in a journal, if you will. That's what it was like for me.
So when the album was released, and obviously you did the Seed with the Roots, and then things started to change. Was that creative process different? Was that did that become different? Because, like you say, you were first in your room, and then very free. So then all of a sudden there are people around you wanting something from you.
Yeah, it was an adjustment. One that I had tried to prepare for as much as I could, but it definitely was an adjustment, which is why moving to Florida was so important, because all of the personal space, everything that I had experienced and created in, you know, had shifted.
Right.
You know, which was great. It was a great education to see the music go out and experience new things, but I wanted to get back to that space where I could just hear within again, and not have so many voices around.
Did it take you long to find that again?
Long enough.
Okay.
You know, but thank God that was the point where I had a child, so I had other things to focus on, and that gave me another perspective on life and inspired me in different ways. And so it was really a new beginning in terms of how I heard things within myself and around me.
In your previous interview with us, we went into detail about this, so I won't go in too deep, but did you miss kind of the creative process and making music as much as you've done before?
No, because I never stopped the process.
Right.
It's just that I became even more patient with the process and what was possible. But as I just said, you know, I had the time to focus on this new life, this new human being. And so I just allowed myself to grow with it naturally. I didn't force it, you know. I wanted to grow as an artist. I wanted to grow in terms of my understanding of myself and the world around me. So I just allowed that to happen, and I knew eventually that the music was going to reflect that again.
This might be a difficult question, but what was one of the things that you discovered about yourself during that, by going away to Florida?
Well, looking back in retrospect, which is why I wrote the first song, Till I Met Thee, I just, how much more I needed to awaken spiritually, and how my music should reflect that awakening, and what I could do with what I could do with the awakening, how I could share that with other people. That's one of the things I learned from the jump. You know, other things came later on, but I think that was the one essential thing, that okay, well, I can communicate from a different place now, even deeper place, if you will.
Right. Was there something specific that kind of made you realize this, or was it a gradual process?
It was gradual, but as I said, the birth of a child, you know, if you're in tune with it, you know, it definitely tends to just purify you in a way. you know, purify your heart, and me wanting to give this child my best, you know, inspired me to give everyone my best. That was kind of loud. But that was the thing, you know, after realizing, okay, well, if I'm going to give my child the most positive thing, then let me give that to everyone's children. Let me give it to everyone in general.
So did you notice, well, once you started writing again, and then, well, you say you never stopped, so, but did you notice the process changing? Did you notice the songs turning out differently?
I noticed it, yes, but it was what I was hoping for. Okay. You know, I was preparing for, once again, to have more mature conversation in the music, and I wanted to become a better communicator on the things I was observing, you know, things that I considered to be topical, you know.
And I'm sorry.
No, I could see myself growing and being able to address those things in different ways.
And that's, I think that's obviously something you still do now, to look at the world around you and kind of write about that. So going into well, the new record, the one you're finishing now, a song like Bullets in the Street and Blood, how did that come up?
Once again, looking around within me, looking around and within, and trying to reconcile everything, you know. I was inspired to address that after hearing about violence in Chicago one weekend. And I was actually in London when the idea came to me. And a lot of the lyrics came to me in the back of a taxi, you know. But once again, just seeing how life is playing out, you know, and simply saying to me, you know, I don't want to accept this. I mean, there are other ways, you know, to approach this. So just expressing how I felt about it.
Does it help then? You mentioned the diary aspect of it. Does it help writing about it?
It's very healing, you know. And as I mentioned to a journalist earlier, you know, this is what I want to do. Whatever heals me, whatever lifts me up, then this is what I'm compelled to share.
Sure.
You know, if it's moving me, then I trust that it'll move another human being. You know, that's all of my work now is about making the human connection.
When did you discover this power of music, so to say? Did you know early on, like you say with Michael Jackson, that music had this quality?
I discovered it. I always heard it in the background, but it wasn't until maybe I was in my late teens that I really began to understand just the power of it and the conscious effort, you know, people were making to address things head on, you know. And that's when I really began, even though I'd grown up with the record all my life, that's when I really began to pay attention to songs in the key of life by Stevie Wonder and What's Going On.